She was the face fans couldn't look away from. The knockout beauty inside the UFC octagon and the surprise star of shows like Overhaulin. But Arianny Celeste's path to fame wasn't all glamour and camera flashes. Beneath the bikinis and big reveals lies a story filled with loss, scandal, and secrets the public was never meant to know. This is the untold journey of Arianny Celeste, model, mogul, and mystery. Before we dive into the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Now let's get into the video. Long before the UFC lights, magazine covers, and red carpet events, Arianny Celeste was just Penelope Lopez Marquez, a girl born in Las Vegas in 1985, raised in a strict traditional household shaped by her Mexican and Filipino heritage. Her early life wasn't about glamour or headlines. It was about survival, discipline, and drive. In a household where expectations were high and emotions were tightly guarded, Arianny learned to be resilient. Her parents pushed education, modesty, and hard work. Fame wasn't in the plan. Stability was. From a young age, Arianny stood out, not just for her beauty, but for her discipline. She was a natural athlete. Cheerleading, gymnastics, and fitness were where she felt most at home. Movement became her language. It wasn't just about staying fit. It was about control, structure, and expression. School was important, but it wasn't where her fire burned brightest. She wanted more, something beyond classrooms and curfews. While other girls dreamed of fairy tales, Arianny was dreaming of freedom, financial, creative, and emotional. She knew early on that if she wanted anything in this world, she'd have to build it herself. After graduating high school, she enrolled at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, majoring in fitness management and nutrition. She worked promotional gigs on the side to pay her bills, modeling at car shows, handing out samples at events, and posing for small local campaigns. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing independence. But fate had other plans. Somewhere between protein shakes and long nights studying, the name Penelope began to fade. And the brand Arianny Celeste was born. It was a reinvention, a statement. If the world was going to look her way, she would make damn sure she was in control of what they saw. It wasn't about vanity. It was about power. Quiet, deliberate, and unstoppable. And soon, the world would notice. In 2006, a seismic shift occurred in Arianny's life. The UFC, then exploding into the mainstream, was looking for fresh talent to represent the organization during fights. A friend suggested she audition as a ring girl. At first, Arianny hesitated. She wasn't a fighter, didn't have connections in MMA, and wasn't sure how she'd be received in such a male-dominated world. But then again, she never waited for permission. When Arianny stepped into that octagon for the first time, everything changed. She didn't just carry the round cards, she commanded the room. Her poise, confidence, and striking beauty set her apart instantly. Within months, she became the face fans associated with the UFC, despite not throwing a single punch. The role may have been silent, but her presence was deafening. She quickly became a fan favorite, winning Ring Girl of the Year multiple times, even beating out fellow standout Brittany Palmer in back-to-back showdowns. Her image was everywhere, from pay-per-view promos to UFC merchandise. But the job came with challenges. Behind the camera, Arianny faced disrespect, underestimation, and constant reminders that her role was decorative, not essential. She knew otherwise. What fans didn't always see was the tightrope she walked, smiling in heels on camera and fighting for fair pay behind the scenes. Rumors of friction with UFC executives, including Dana White, followed her rise. She wasn't afraid to demand respect, even when it made her unpopular with the higher-ups. But in a sport built on resilience, Arianny was tougher than most gave her credit for. She wasn't just a pretty face in the cage. She was building a brand and forcing the UFC to see her not as a side act, but a symbol of its evolution. By 2010, Arianny Celeste had officially crossed over. No longer just an octagon icon, she was now a mainstream media phenomenon. Magazine editors took notice of her striking look, disciplined figure, and growing fan base. The offers rolled in. Maxim, FHM, Sports Illustrated, and then came the biggest of all, Playboy. Her 2010 Playboy cover didn't just break the internet, it shattered expectations. She was the first UFC ring girl to ever grace the magazine. The shoot was bold, sultry, and elegant. But for Arianny, it was more than just a milestone. It was a risk, one that would come with consequences. The shoot was both a career high and a personal storm. Her conservative family was reportedly shocked. Friends were divided. The UFC, though publicly supportive, was quietly conflicted. Arianny had just redefined the limits of what a ring girl could be, but not everyone was cheering. Critics accused her of selling out. Commentators debated whether the UFC should draw a line between sport and sex appeal. But Arianny stood firm. For her, the shoot wasn't about exploitation, it was about ownership. She'd worked tirelessly to shape her image, and now she was monetizing it on her terms. Still, whispers from insiders painted a different picture. Some claimed the shoot created behind-the-scenes tension with UFC brass. Others said Arianny had gone too far and would be sidelined. Neither was true, but the message was clear. Visibility came with a price. Behind the lens of that glossy cover was a woman learning that the higher you rise, the sharper the knives waiting behind you. By the time Overhaulin came calling, Arianny Celeste was a household name. But no one expected her to appear on the hit automotive reality series, especially not as a prank target. The episode aired in 2014, and what unfolded wasn't a shallow cameo. It was a glimpse into a side of Arianny the public hadn't seen before. She thought her beloved car had been stolen. The tension, the disbelief, the emotion, it was all real. Viewers watched as Arianny went from confusion to heartbreak to tears. And when the final reveal came, her ride fully transformed by Chip Foose and the crew, something surprising happened. Arianny wasn't just grateful, she was humbled, even overwhelmed. This wasn't a ring girl moment, this was human. Fans were stunned by her vulnerability, her laughter, and her genuine connection to the car. She knew her way around the basics, asked thoughtful questions, and showed real appreciation for the craftsmanship. In a world where she was often reduced to her looks, this episode peeled back the curtain. Here was a woman who loved machines, respected detail, and didn't mind getting her hands a little dirty. But not everyone was impressed. Critics online questioned her authenticity. Some accused Overhaulin of using her as eye candy. Others mocked her emotional reaction as scripted or attention-seeking. It didn't matter. The truth was clear. Arianny had stepped out of the octagon spotlight and found another place where she belonged. Not as a gimmick, but as a gearhead with heart. May 26, 2012, Arianny Celeste's name flooded headlines, but not for a photo shoot or UFC appearance. That morning, she was arrested in Las Vegas on charges of domestic violence. The mugshot went viral. The details were scarce. Police had responded to a hotel room disturbance involving Arianny and then-boyfriend Praveen Chandra. By the time the dust settled, Arianny was in handcuffs. The news spread like wildfire. Gossip blogs ran wild with theories. Was she the aggressor? The victim? Was this the end of her career? The UFC issued a cautious statement, with Dana White calling her one of the greatest we've ever had. But fans weren't sure how to process it. The woman known for grace and poise was suddenly seen through the lens of controversy. Days later, Arianny released a statement, short, poised, and vague. She called the incident unfortunate and said she was looking forward to moving past it. Charges were eventually dropped, but the stigma remained. No tell-all interview, no in-depth explanation, just silence. What the public didn't see was the emotional fallout. Sources close to her said Arianny was devastated, not just by the arrest, but by how quickly people turned on her. Friends distanced themselves, brands paused endorsements. Her role in UFC events was temporarily minimized. She went from adored to judged in an instant. For Arianny, the mugshot wasn't just a personal low. It was a wake-up call. She began pulling away from the spotlight, reevaluating who was really in her corner. And while the tabloids moved on, the scars from that night lingered. They changed her, not just professionally, but personally. It was her first real fall from grace, and the first time the world realized Arianny Celeste wasn't untouchable. The UFC built its empire on blood, sweat, and showmanship, But behind the octagon lights was a system with cracks. Arianny Celeste wasn't just a part of the UFC machine, she was one of its most exploited gears. As the face of the brand's glamour side, she was expected to smile, wave, and show up, no matter the toll. Behind the scenes, whispers of pay disparity circulated for years. While UFC fighters battled for contract equality, Arianny was fighting a quieter war, one for respect. Ring girls were often dismissed as props or fluff. But they worked relentless schedules, traveling constantly, promoting events, and facing intense scrutiny, without even a fraction of the fighters' pay or protection. Arianny began pushing back, not loudly but firmly. She reportedly demanded fair compensation, spoke out about working conditions, and began distancing herself from promotional appearances that didn't align with her values. Some called her difficult, others called her brave. But the UFC is a boys' club, and stepping out of line, especially as a woman, meant risking everything. Behind closed doors, Arianny's assertiveness ruffled feathers. Rumors swirled of behind-the-scenes clashes. Some speculated she was blacklisted from major endorsements. Others believed producers tried phasing her out after the 2012 arrest. No one confirmed it, but something had changed. She was no longer just the glamorous mascot. She was a woman demanding more than applause. She wanted equality, and in an industry that still struggles with misogyny, that made her dangerous. So the question became, how long could Arianny stay part of a system that didn't truly value her? The lights of fame can be blinding. For Arianny Celeste, they were almost suffocating. Behind every photo shoot, every octagon walk, every Instagram post was a woman on the edge. After years of non-stop exposure, Arianny began to feel the crushing weight of celebrity. And though she rarely spoke of it publicly, the signs were there. In interviews, she hinted at the pressure, the expectations to look perfect, sound perfect, be perfect. The hate messages, the online trolls, the endless comparisons. It wasn't just exhausting, it was eroding her sense of self. She began experiencing anxiety, self-doubt, and what some close to her describe as emotional shutdowns. Friends noticed her pulling back. She skipped events, stopped posting as frequently. Rumors of burnout began to circulate. And quietly, Arianny began seeking help. Therapy, meditation, journaling, tools to rebuild what fame had slowly stripped away. For the first time in her career, she prioritized herself over appearances. But healing wasn't linear. As she opened up more about mental health, Arianny faced new criticism. Some accused her of playing victim. Others said she was just rebranding. But those closest to her knew the truth. She was finally being honest. Not just with her fans, but with herself. She began using her platform to talk about mental wellness, self-care, and the importance of boundaries, especially for women in entertainment. The same voice that once called out rounds was now calling out toxic cycles. And in doing so, Arianny Celeste began rewriting the story she was never allowed to tell. Arianny Celeste wasn't interested in fading away. After years of building someone else's brand, she made a bold pivot, this time as the architect of her own empire. She launched Girlfriend Box, a subscription jewelry company aimed at making high-end accessories accessible and empowering for women. She started promoting fitness, wellness, and business tips, shifting her image from model to mentor. Then came the most controversial move yet. Arianny joined OnlyFans. To some, it felt like a step backward, a return to selling sex appeal in a world that already objectified her. But for Arianny, it was the opposite. She was finally in control. No photographers, no UFC bosses, no brand deals to shape her image. Just her content, her rules. And for the first time in her career, she owned every dollar, every decision, and every boundary. Critics predictably attacked. Desperate, washed up, attention-seeking, the internet had plenty to say. But Arianny had heard it all before. She tuned it out and doubled down. She rebranded herself, not just as a content creator, but as a businesswoman. Her OnlyFans content wasn't just explicit. It was curated, professional, empowering. She also began coaching other women, helping them find financial freedom and independence in an economy where social media was currency. She wasn't trying to be a role model. She was building a blueprint, one she wished someone had handed her years ago. Arianny had gone from being told what to wear, how to pose, and when to smile, to writing the script herself. She'd been a fixture in a billion-dollar sport. Now she was her own franchise. And for the first time, she didn't owe anyone anything. Arianny Celeste's life looked flawless from the outside. Photo shoots, UFC fame, a growing business empire. But what the public never saw was the pain she kept hidden beneath the gloss. The betrayals, the losses, the private moments that never made it to Instagram. Behind closed doors, Arianny was dealing with trust issues that ran deep. People she had called friends, some from childhood, others from the industry, had used her for access, money, and status. One former assistant allegedly siphoned money through falsified invoices. A past manager was said to have taken undisclosed cuts from her endorsement deals. These betrayals weren't just financial. They were personal. They broke her sense of safety. There were also deeper emotional wounds. Arianny went through at least 2 serious breakups, both with men the public never really knew about, by design. One relationship reportedly ended after discovering infidelity, the other after persistent emotional manipulation. She never spoke publicly about either, but those close to her say these were turning points, moments when she truly understood that fame doesn't protect you from pain. In fact, it often invites it. In 2018, rumors emerged about a stalker, someone who followed her across states, sent threatening messages, and even appeared at public events. She never confirmed it publicly, but her team quietly increased security, and she briefly pulled back from public appearances. Even as she expanded her business and embraced motherhood, she fought invisible battles. Some days, she barely left her house. Panic attacks, sleep deprivation, the gnawing fear that everything she built could collapse with one wrong move. And yet, she never stopped. She simply got quieter, sharper, and more selective. Arianny Celeste didn't go public with her pain. She didn't tweet cryptic messages or post tearful videos. She healed in silence. And in that silence, she found clarity about who she was, about who she could trust, and about what truly mattered. Because while the world saw a ring girl turned entrepreneur, they missed the woman quietly surviving betrayal, heartbreak, and trauma, without applause, without spectacle. Arianny Celeste isn't where she started. She's not where she was. She's somewhere entirely her own. After nearly 2 decades in the public eye, she's emerged not just intact, but empowered. She's no longer chasing camera time or magazine spreads. She's chasing balance, fulfillment, authenticity, and more than anything, peace. Her days are spent with her son, whom she calls her greatest blessing. Her posts now speak to other mothers, entrepreneurs, and women chasing independence on their own terms. But her impact goes beyond lifestyle branding or modeling. She's become a quiet force in empowering women to control their image and monetize their talents. Whether through platforms like OnlyFans or entrepreneurial mentoring, Arianny has turned her journey into a roadmap, one that refuses to let shame or societal judgment define a woman's worth. She's also become more vocal about the entertainment industry's double standards, about how women are discarded the moment they age, speak out, or seek equity. She doesn't rant, she educates. She doesn't tear down, she builds. One honest post, one business launch, one empowered woman at a time. Her legacy isn't the UFC, it's not Playboy, it's not Overhaulin. It's the example she set by refusing to be boxed in, by surviving scandal without selling her soul, by owning her missteps, reshaping her narrative, and choosing herself every time. She once walked in heels across a UFC stage, holding round cards between fights. Today, she walks in truth. And maybe that's the final twist in her story. Arianny Celeste was never just the woman beside the fight.
She was always the one fighting for something bigger, herself.